So let's see, record to the cloud. Yeah. So we'll get started. Om. 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 Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Vridavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusantatami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Namostu te vyasa vishala buddhe Pulla ravindayata patra netra Yena tvaya bharata taila purnaha Prajvalito jnanamaya pradipaha Prapanna parijataya Totra vetraika panaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetamritaduhe Namaha Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangapada Kramopanishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyana Vastita Tatkatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Yasyantam na vidusura suraganaha Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha Sarvadharman parityajya Mamekam sharanam vraja Aham tva sarva papebhyaha Mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. So we are on the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, crossing the half marks thing here. And we are getting into, especially in today's talk, where I want to summarize this whole shlokas of 24 through 28, which literally takes us to the highest form of what meditation is, which is we call as Nirvikalpa Samadhi. The highest spot in meditation, you can say. We do think about meditation in so many different ways to calm our mind and everything. But in this set of shlokas of 24 to 28, we will see how it is about even giving up the mind. What is there beyond the mind? So that aspect is what we're going to discuss. So today I wanted to ask, is anybody wanting to do any reflection on any of the shlokas from chapter 6? Since we just started with kind of a reflection on, because as we read a particular shloka, it is meditation itself. Because, like we said, the sadhanas, we do a lot of sadhanas at the level of body and mind, but at the level of the intellect or getting to the highest level of meditation, one needs to go through Shravanam. Shravanam means listening, but also reading something and later on doing that reflection, which is Mananam. So that is what we are here. We are trying to reflect on any of the shlokas. And just by reflection on the words, that itself is meditation. Because, in fact, they say that even if your mind is totally tuned with the teaching, At that point, there is nothing left. There is only that essence of knowledge. So from that point, anybody wanting to reflect on any shloka? If not, no problem. We can always do it next week. This is just a forum where I thought would be good to think about it.
I can do it next week.
Sure. That'll be wonderful, Meenu. Great. Thank you. So we are, like I said, in the last, the shlokas of 24 through 28. And we will actually see that whole section today, 24 through 28. Last time we stopped at 23rd or 24th. No, we stopped at the 24th shloka, actually. I remember that one. And today we will take up Meena's question 2 is, what does it mean about control of the intellect, and how is it connected to the whole, the total intelligence, that part of it. She was saying that we can discuss some examples. We will do that as well. So we will, in this thing of 24 through 28, which of course I will mention again, we are looking at the highest state of meditation, or we call Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And this Nirvikalpa Samadhi is actually, if you have seen the thread of thought, we are looking at that from 2 different standpoints. One is actually from the state of the absolute, right? Again, simple example I want to give, absolute, when we say absolute. So if you take sugar as an example, we know the essence of sugar is actually sweetness. But then, we forget that the essence of sugar is sweetness, and we put that in different desserts, cakes and gulab jamuns and all kinds of stuff. And then we enjoy those things. We put a lot of effort in enjoying all that. But imagine if you could just save ourselves some trouble and just focus on that sweetness of sugar and put sugar into your mouth, Wouldn't that would save so much amount of effort, and we can just get the essence of it, right? So too, our self, actually, we are that peace, we are that happiness, we are that sweetness, all that. So meditation actually is a way for us to understand that absolute self. So the meditation here, we have seen it from that standpoint, which is from that point of that essence. Okay, how can I focus on that pure essence of who I am? That essence which we call as Brahman, which is the most blissful, most happiest form of the states. But what do? We actually focus on that gulab jamun. But we need to focus on the essence of it. So the absolute standpoint, from absolute point is where this meditation takes us to. One can also look at this from the relative standpoint, which is, relative standpoint is from the point of understanding very clearly that this world which I am part of, everything which is part of this world, since we're up to almost 25 shlokas, I'm not beating around the bush. I'm coming straight to the point, which is, I need to get this into my head that in this world, anything and everything I do will never take me to that absolute happiness, which Bhagavad Gita is leading us to. Everything in that sense is actually sort of unreal. In that sense, it is unreal. I think that the world is giving me the reality. The world is giving me all the joy, but actually it is not. I need to give up on this world and recognize that all the joy that I'm getting is very, very temporary. We can actually understand that too. We see that happening. We can, again, giving the same example of gulab jamun, I see that that one gulab jamun gives me sweetness, more than that does not give me sweetness, that itself indicates that that joy there is only temporary. But still, I keep going back to that again and again and again. So I need to convince his mind that this is, and this can happen only through this knowledge. So when I listen to Upanishads, when I listen to Bhagavad Gita, or when I listen to Bhagavatam, all that reminder allows me to then slowly and slowly understand the falsity of the world and focus on that tattva, that Paramatma or that Brahman, which is my essential nature. So meditation takes us to that part. So we will chant today from 15th shloka. Okay, last time we chanted 10 of them. We chant from 15, just about 7 shlokas, and then we'll go to 24 through 28. Yunjannevam sadatmanam yogi niyatamaanasaha shantim nirvana paramam matsamstam adhigacchati natyashnatastu yogosti nachaikantamanashnatah nachati swapnashilasya jagrito naiva charjuna Yuktahara viharasya yukta cheshtasya karmasu yukta swapnava bodhasya yogo bhavati dukkha yada viniyatam chittam atmanyeva vatisthate nispriha sarvakamebhyah yukta ityucchade tada Yatha deepo nivatastah nengate sopamasprita yogino yata chittasya yunjato yogamatmanah yatro paramate chittam niruddham yoga sevaya yatra chaivatmanatmanam pashyannatmani tushyati Sukhamatyantikam yattad buddhikrahya matindriyam veti yatra na chaivayam stitaschalati tatvatah yam labdhva chaparam labham manyate nadikam tatah yasmin stito na dukkhena gurunam api vichanyate Tam vidya dukkha sanyogam viyogam yoga sangitam sanishchayena yoktavyaha yogo nirvinna chetasaha. So this till here you see the all the techniques, all the obstacles that sort of takes us to understanding what meditation is, and also the focus on meditation from a point of, we call this a Savikalpa meditation. Savikalpa indicating where there is a form, to understand from that point. But the shlokas 24 to 28 is actually the core of the 6th chapter. So in this chapter, in this core shlokas, you are actually seeing the aspect of how to progress even further, that is beyond Savikalpa to Nirvikalpa. Savikalpa is meditation on a form, and where still the Aham Bhava, everything is there. Nirvikalpa is even shattering this aspect of who I am and what is my relation to the world, all that. So that's what do I need to do there? So in Shloka 24, we talked about, or we discussed this aspect of first, in order to give up the world, I need to detach myself. So that is very important. I need to detach myself completely from the world. And how can that happen? Is it just by, selling my house, giving away things and running away from there? Is that how it happens? Not really. So this is why he says the detachment actually happens at the mind level. At the mind, if we look at it, it starts from the mind. All the desires, all the hopes, anxieties, everything starts from the mind. And therefore, this is one of the biggest obstacle which needs to be handled. And so giving up at the mind sankalpa, which is the thought desires. So that's what here we talked about, sankalpa prabhavan kaman, giving up all these desires. And then what do? Obviously I cannot just sit, because my mind, it's very difficult to restrain that mind. So I have to make sure that all the senses are withdrawn from the mind. Basically the senses are the ones through which we encounter the world. So I need to bring that thing. We are really expert planners every moment. We are constantly thinking what next. Even as I'm sitting in the Bhagavad Gita class, it's already time is about close to 9 o'clock. I'm thinking, okay, tomorrow, what is my, what do I need to do? So we are constantly living, what we say this in absentia, I'm not living here. I'm always living tomorrow mentally. And I'm not even aware of this. This just happens so easily, I'm planning for today, the next year, tomorrow, everything. We are like in Tamil, it's called as Manakote Manoratham, Manoratham means having the mind just go imagining. And Manakote means, building this mountain of desires. So I need to give up all this Sankalpa Prabhavan Kaman. I need to totally, because I've just given this picture of how it's like a ripple thought. I have to arrest it right there. Even before it starts to develop, it just becomes bigger and bigger. I need to understand that that's the thought itself is, where if I don't stop it, it just go haywire. And we are not talking about just this one thought where it can start just with, say, for example, at the level of vyavahar. If it's my mother is at home, my husband is at home, each one creates their own thought. And from that one thought, there will be multiple thoughts. All these things need to be stopped right there. And Indriya Gramam Viniyamya. So I have to completely restrain that sense organs also, because even as I'm sitting, I might be thinking, I made this mistake of giving this example of gulab jamun. So next thing you might, the thought, it's sparked somewhere in the mind. It's going to tell you that, okay, next week or the week after, if I have to make a dessert, let me think about something like this. So even I don't need to literally open my eyes and go somewhere. It's enough that my mind has stored all this and it allows it to go haywire, right? So then the question we said was, what should we do? I need to focus on this detachment, but it's a two-step process. Just like we said, climbing the ladder, if I have to take the next step, I have to give up the bottom step, but I have to immediately latch on to the top one. So this is where I constantly have to focus on any of the shlokas of Bhagavad Gita and think, okay, what does this Bhagavad Gita say? So think about any shloka, which is probably your favorite one, and immediately feed that mind, that shloka, that way that energy which is stored within myself can be now used towards focusing on that shloka, and I can, meditate upon that. So that was about shloka 24. So shloka 24 was about the biggest obstacle is my mind, and the mind is nothing but flow of thoughts. And each of these thoughts, which I myself am creating because of previous impressions, all that is to be taken out. So then we said, what should I do? I should start to feed this mind with something which is more profound and move ahead. But then shloka number 25 is this shloka which is very, it's a caution that Krishna is giving Arjuna, where he's saying, that, all this can happen only slowly. And shanaihi uparamet, buddhya dhriti grihiteya, atma samstam manakritva, na kinchidapi chintayet. So we spent a lot of time last week talking about this mind control, on how I can practice this mind control. It's, he's in the best part in Bhagavad Gita is nowhere does Lord Krishna says you have to sit for 30 minutes every day, or you have to sit for 1 hour every day. He doesn't say that at all. He only says, that this mind is very fickle-minded. You have to take care of it and slowly try to bring it back. Because the mind, if you leave it alone, it just loves to be busy. It just wants to keep on jumping from one thing to another. Even as, like I said, even as you're sitting, it doesn't let you go. So we have to do this. So the question then is, slowly we need to do this. And just like how if I'm losing weight, I follow a strict diet, but then I don't just jump into it and say that I have to lose my weight. I make sure that I do it very slowly, little by little. I try to control, like if I have to give up coffee, let me not think about just giving up just like that. Of course, some people have great mind control, they can do it, but we can do it by maybe reducing the number of coffees by half cup or something like that, giving up a whole cup during the morning, those kind of things. So that is where he says about working with the mind very gently and gradually. And it's only by this that I can actually peel off one layer at a time. And this is whole reason is I need to make the mind subtler and subtler. I have to make the mind to such an extent where it does not think about anything. Really a very tough thing. I'm sure you all have gone through this when you've started to meditate. How is it even possible to make the mind totally devoid of anything? So I just want to pause a little bit here and ask you, what do you think? How do you think that we can actually make this mind subtler? And that is why Krishna says, make the mind subtler and subtler. He doesn't say just give up everything and sit down, slowly bring it back. Yeah, go ahead,
It's
Geeta.
just like you meant. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Please continue.
Okay. Just like you said, whenever the thought comes, just control it. So that reminds me of an example. When we go to pick up somebody at the airport, there's thousands of people going in and out, but our mind is just looking for that person only. We don't even notice anybody else going in and out. So we're just looking for that person. So if we concentrate on that thought, put it our mind there and let other thoughts just let them go away, like ignore them.
Beautiful example. Beautiful example.
Correct.
So first, I need to put that thought in my calm mind, right? So then, when I'm meditating, that thought will come easily. Beautiful.
Basically, is she trying to say concentration on what we are actually thinking at that moment of time?
I mean, like if you have to suppose I have to pick Sunitha ji from airport, there are other people going around me. I don't even look at them. I'm just looking for her only in there. So the same way, there's so many thoughts are coming. But if you focus that, no, I am that, Tattvamasi, or some whatever thought you have in mind, just focus on that, and slowly you'll start ignoring everything else. You won't even remember the person in front of you go by, maybe wearing red t-shirt. You won't, because you're not even looking for that person. You're just looking for, you have your mind on, I have to
basically concentrate. So basically concentrate on what your thought is and just focus on it. Don't waver your mind. That's what you're trying to say. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yes. Thank you. Yeah.
That is one part of it, Meena, but the other part of it, when Meenu said focus on that one thought, apart from the other thoughts, how do you make the mind focus on only one thought, right?
Yes.
So you have to feed the mind that one thought prior to this, so for example, when Meenu gave this example of picking Sunitha up at the airport, she, prior to starting on that journey, she had already planted the thought of Sunitha in her mind.
Yeah.
So therefore, throughout the whole journey, she was thinking, okay, I need to pick her up. I need to pick her up. So when she goes to the airport, even though there may be so many other things happening, her mind is still focused on, I have to pick Sunitha. So too, in this journey of meditation, what we can think about is, prior to sitting into meditation, I think of that Paramatman. So which is why not to dive into meditation immediately, but having a pre-step prior to meditation, where maybe I'm doing this concentration, like you just said, I do a japa on a particular mantra, or a particular phrase, either Tattvamasi or Shri Krishna Namaha, or Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, anything, whatever is our own Ishta mantra, I put that into my mind. And then I sit for meditation. Okay. So that is one form of meditation. In here, in chapter 6, what we are discussing is, I'm getting to discuss where I'm feeding my mind some the knowledge, the essence of really the ultimate. What is that essence? If my mind is convinced about it, then what happens is, when I'm sitting for meditation, automatically it will go to that thought. Yeah, very beautiful.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Geeta, you wanted to say something?
No. I was just thinking, meditation is like, we just want to focus on the formless form. But
correct.
Even if we stand in front of the deity or in the puja room, in front of God, we really have to control our mind, because even then the mind goes. Even if we have a form in front of us, still our mind wanders around sometimes. No, that's why I thought, forget no idol in front of us, but this itself is still we have to improve, I thought.
Correct. Totally. It's the problem for all of us. The reason why, even when we are standing in front of the idol, many of the thought goes is, there is a fundamental point. We are we are so attached to the fact that in this world, nothing will happen without me. I have to take care of the world. I am part of this world. Somehow that is sort of ingrained in us. We have to let go of the fact that there is somebody much higher than us who's there to take care of the world. When I have that kind of a thought, then slowly, when I'm standing in front of the Lord too, then I remember that it is that Lord because of whom everything is happening. So simple thing is, here we have a lot of these lizards going. Now, as the lizard is going, if the lizard is thinking that I'm supporting the ceiling, it's not the case at all. We look at the lizard and say that, you are supporting the ceiling? You're such a small kutti thing there, going around. I'm saying that because I have 2 or 3 of these pets in my room, So, so now I consider them as a pet, because you can't, you have to consider them as a pet. And I have a lot of fun, actually. I'm really amazed. Earlier, I never used to think about the lizards that way. But now, I see, wow, this lizard is going so fast. The other lizard is going so slow, So even among lizards, there are different types, Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic, I guess. Anyway, so my point is, we all think we are holding the world. Without me, nothing can happen, fundamentally. So, yes, so we are getting to that state where the mind cannot think of anything. Totally nirguna. Nir is, meaning nothing, right? No gunas. Nishkala, Nitya. Nitya means permanent. Niranjana, Nirakara, Nirvikalpa. It is that state. Even if I can feed my mind these words, then that I've come a long way to understand where I can go. So this is the state where we're getting to, that state of meditation where Atma Samstam Manakritva na kinchit api chintayet. I don't think of anything because I am Nirguna, I am Nishkala, Niranjana, Nirvikalpa. So then we talked about, I hope you can all, the power went off slightly. You can see me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Very good. So we talked about the 6 last time, but let me come to the point which Meena had asked. It says, what does it mean where I am slowly controlling my, in the previous shloka, I had the previous slide, we talked about Atma Samstam Manakritva na kinchit api chintayet, where there is nothing connected with my 5 senses. Here, speech control can also be looked at as a control of the 5 senses, whether it's my speaking, whether it's my touch, my ears, my nose, in all those 5 senses, I have a control. From there on, my mind also control, which we have seen. Then we talked about this attachment to everything, thinking that this world cannot function without me, that ego control. I need to give up that control. And ultimately, the intellect control. Intellect control, meaning that, this intellect is the big boss. This intellect says, I'm the one who's directing all your activities. In fact, it is intellect that even directs the I, myself. The intellect tells me you can go here. If you go late in the night, you'll be in trouble. All that the intellect is trying to tell the I not to do things. Now, the intellect itself, if you think about it, it is the intelligent part of myself, correct? It's the intelligence which is actually, directing all my activities. But even this intellect is actually part of the cosmic intelligence. We are connected in some way or the other by this web. Like, in a company, you have so many different people working together, but then you have, in some form or the other, a small aspect of each person who ultimately is the cosmic intellect. So that is why it is important for us to think about that whatever I do, from my intelligence standpoint, from my intellect standpoint, how is it not just affecting others within the company, but how is that company functioning in the universe, in the world, if you want. And let's talk about the world before we talk about the universe. So each one of us are so connected at that cosmic intellect level that every decision that I make has some ripple effect in the whole universe. So it could be whether I'm part of a company or even when I'm part of a family. And you see this, especially if you're part of a joint family and everything, how small things affects the joint family system. But does that mean that if I'm sitting in my room and I'm not connected to anybody, that there is nothing, no ripple effect? No, that is also not true. I can be sitting in my room saying that I'm not disturbing the environment or whatever, but by not participating in that cosmic intellect, I'm actually also in a very tamasic way hurting the environment. This shloka, second chapter, 47 shloka, karmani vadikaraste ma paleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbuhu mate sangosva karmani. That shloka, which talks about inaction. When I'm not doing something also, I'm actually doing something harm, something to think about. So, like I said, many different ways in which I can think about how I'm connected to cosmic intellect. Either it's through, and even when I'm part of a community group, for example, in a community group, am I functioning to my best possible way? Am I doing the right kind of decisions at my intellect level in helping the community? So sometimes we just we say go with the flow, but what is flow? Flow is actually everything. Each one of our decisions at the intellect level constitutes that flow. But sometimes we feel that flow is something where, somebody has made the decision, let me just go with it. No, that is not what it is. So that aspect is what we need to think about here as a sadhana point of view, because intelligently, I have to be connected to everything in the universe. So that is, as we're going through the different levels, of sadhana, to recognize that next level after intellect control, how am I connected to the cosmic intellect? And ultimately, when I recognize my connection to everything, and I recognize to what extent I really have any control, at that point, the surrender principle takes into effect. And that surrender principle, when I totally surrender myself to that Paramatma, that's when this resting of inner equipment happens, that Shantatma, where there is then no thoughts at all. So we started with Sankalpa Prabhavan Kaman, where thoughts are the ones which creates desires in everything. But ultimately, we are coming to a point where if for the thoughts to die completely, this is the fold process, which is what I had shown here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the 6th one I had just put last time as a way in where I'm just adding one more, where we need to start with and then go on further down. So here in this, I'll just finish this one quick thought, Anand. So in Bhagavatam, there is a shloka, which talks about, and this is actually more from a Sankhya philosophy, I would say, but the applicability is to understand that, from the total energy of Mahat Tattva, this whole thing starts. So I need to go back to that Mahat Tattva, if you want to think about it. I have manifested the false ego, the various material elements. This is the 24 elements that Sankhya philosophy talks about. So everything has come from that ultimate Paramatma. So slowly and slowly, I need to go back to that point. And that is the aspect that we are talking about. Yeah, go ahead, Anand.
Yeah, Hari Om. Just in the previous slide, the point number 3, the ego. Yeah, from the what I heard was like from other lectures, other way. Ego is the highest, one of the highest things. Like that's the reason why what makes people, jiva to take birth and death. Like it is the aham bhavam. Until that is gone, the person won't be close to the moksha. Just some thoughts.
Correct. Giving up the I is the ultimate. That is true. Yeah. So the mind needs to be withdrawn from the total external world. Just some thoughts here. And then, so the very first thing which we always come to is, the world which I see is one form of giving up. The second form of giving up is my own self, my physical body, which is also an object of my experience. I need to remember that part of it. And finally is my own mind, which is also an object of my experience. So ultimately, if the mind has to be quietened down, this is just another form of sadhana that I can think of. So in meditation, that's what I need to do. First, I need to start slowly withdrawing from the world. Then I withdraw the mind from even my own physical self. And then ultimately this mind, which I talked about here. So then now coming to shloka number 26 is again a kind of a shloka where he's saying, Yato yato nishcharati manash chanchalamasstiram tatastato niyam yaitad atmanyeva vasham nayet. So it's a kind of a continuation from the previous shloka where he says that yataha, that is from whatever cause, from whatever causes the mind to wander away, which is making this mind very unsteady and restless. So let the person from that, let him restrain it and bring it under self-control. So just a continuation of the thought, which I wanted to mention here. So yata nishcharati, from wherever the mind is moving away, which I showed in the previous slide, which is either the world or the body, or even the emotions or thoughts which are in my mind, which is all kinds of thoughts which pollutes my mind. So from all that, let the person totally bring into that Atmani, rest, let the thing rest on the mind itself. So the example that is given is many times or example of maybe this phone, I'm holding it in my hand all this time and my hand just pains when I hold this. But if I just keep it now on the desk, then my hand is completely free, and the phone is also totally stable. It's on a stable ground, completely stable, right? So too, I need to slowly and slowly give up anything that is causing me stress or anything, and let it rest totally on something which is very stable. And what is that stability? It is that aspect of my own ultimate self, which is that consciousness. So as Anand pointed out, I'm always in the state of me and I need to give up that aspect and allow myself to get to that state of that consciousness, which is my true nature. So in here, the two practical things that we can also think about is the two things that prevents me from that yataha nishcharati, where it says that restless, unsteady mind, manaha chanchalam astiram. What makes this mind unsteady? So two things that we can think about is tamasic and rajasic thoughts. So tamasic and rajasic thoughts indicating, so rajasic thoughts, that's probably one that we can think about here, which is manaha chanchalam. What gives us manaha chanchalam many times? It is basically this idea of having desires of these three kinds, which is having too many things distracting me in my mind, or something which, I always have these hopes, or I have anxiety on how things are going. So all these things are the rajasic kind of thoughts. But the other thing, which is tamasic thoughts, is the because of lack of sleep or having too much to do because of the rajasicness, there is a lot of drowsiness that can come up, which can distract my mind from meditation. So I need to be firm with the mind and bring it slowly and slowly to bring it under my control. So that is the aspect which is really addressing in the shloka, which is manaha chanchalam astiram, the restlessness mind, not allowing it to go out, not allowing it to think anything, and just bringing it by. So how do I do? So what should I do for this? Again, he's saying, continuously keep on bringing it to rest. Atmani eva vasham nayet. Bring it continuously only to rest in that absolute self. Only then the mind is going to be completely calm. So then in shloka 27, he talks about what is the result of all this practice. Again, we have seen this this strategy by Lord Krishna. He will always, give you some thought to think about, and then he will give you this candy. He'll say, okay, if you do this, this is what you will get. And so, just like, he says, there's nothing that happens by accident here in this case. The flower doesn't seek the bee. It is the bee that seeks the flower, indicating that, the happiness which is in myself, and that is totally, I'm there. So the flower represents that happiness, so all this happens. I don't need to go anywhere. I'm not that bee which is seeking that state of meditation or that bliss. I am already that. And that is that supreme bliss is what he talks about in Shloka 27. Prashanta manasam heenam. Prashanta manasam heenam. Yoginam sukham uttamam. Yoginam sukham uttamam. Upaiti shantarajasam. Upaiti shantarajasam. Brahma bhutama kalmasham. Brahma bhutama kalmasham. So he says, we are not seeking somewhere else for this. The mind itself is that absolute peace. So prashanta manasam hi enam. So the mind filled with peace, he says it comes to him. For that person, he can taste that absolute bliss. And that bliss can be obtained only when upaiti shanta rajasam, when the passions, where all the sankalpas, all the things, the to-dos, everything has totally been quietened, that person really experiences that bliss or peace. And again, when we talk about experiencing, it is not the kind of experience we get when I taste some ice cream or anything like that. It is something which is my own nature. And that is why he says, Brahma Bhuta Akalmasham. That person recognizes, even the word recognize again, when we say recognize, we'll think, oh, from the intellect point of view, this person knows that he's Brahman. No, it is that state where he is a Brahman, he becomes Brahman. Becomes Brahman in the sense, it's not that he was not Brahman before. He is that Brahman, and he is free from any sin. Free from any sin, indicating, sin is something which we always say is not something that you're committing something. Sin is something which, when you recognize something which you are not, and all this time we think we are the Sunitha, for example. Actually, I'm not. I'm not the Sunitha. I am that Brahman. So the sin is thinking that I'm Sunitha. So such a person reaches that state, which is absolutely sinless state. So it is that supreme peace, supreme bliss, and sinless state. And how do you get to that point? It is really totally by that total detachment, total dispassion for anything. Whatever comes my way, I enjoy it. Whatever doesn't come my way, I'm okay with it. And I'm totally disconnected with everything. I'm detached. And it is that state which is the state of climbing, really climbing to that state of meditation, which is Upaiti Shanta Rajasam Brahma Bhuta Akalmasham. I'm reaching that state of Brahman. And again, the words, all English words fail to really say what it means. Am I really climbing? No, I'm not climbing. Am I really, reaching that state? No, there is no place to reach. I am that state. So that is why he said Brahma Bhuta Kalmasham, that I am that state. I absolutely recognize that I'm state. So in that sense, this is climbing a place. So this, if you can look at it, so you start with somewhere where I'm totally detached. I give up my complete attachment to anything. When I do that, I reach that state of giving up my identity, which I'm holding on to, which is really where I start committing a lot of sins. So when I reach that state of Brahman, I'm totally sinless. When I do that, I'm actually reaching that state of peace or bliss. So this brings us to the last shloka in this, which is again a very simple shloka, which is Yunjannevam sadatmanam, Yunjannevam sadatmanam, Yogi vigata kalmashaha, Yogi vigata kalmashaha, Sukhena brahma samsparsham, Sukhena brahma samsparsham, Atyantam sukham ashnute, Atyantam sukham ashnute. So he's saying that peace which is actually so easily available, that stress-free life, what I want, is so just easy. Again, that flower in the bee example, the flower is totally content with who it is, right? So that state can be obtained by always engaging his mind. So Yunjanevam Sadatmanam, where is it engaging in the world outside? No, it is by totally being reveling in that state. Sukhena Brahma Samsparsham. That person is always in contact with his or her true nature. When that happens, that person reaches that state of absolute bliss. Sukhena Atyantam. Atyantam, total infinite bliss. Sukham Ashnute. Totally he enjoys that absolute bliss, which is what he's saying. So engaging the mind completely, he does that. So now we see where the meditation is now explained from these two standpoints. From that absolute standpoint is where the shlokas were talking about. From a relative standpoint, is trying to show how to detach the mind. And when the detachment happens, that state of liberation is already obtained. So, we are practicing the detachment, which is peeling every layer from ourselves to reach that state. And that absolute standpoint, which is to explain that I am that bliss, I can already achieve that. So the next shlokas, we will really we'll go into a little different topic here, which is, he will explain about, normally we look at ourselves as, okay, I am Sunitha, you are Geetha, that kind of thing. But how do I get to that state of giving up that individuality, giving up the body identity? So the next shlokas is actually, it gives you an idea, what does it mean to be in that state? So we will talk about that next week with the shloka number 29 and then 28. Any questions? We have 1 or 2 minutes.
Do you want to stop the recording, sir?
Yes, I can do that. I'll stop the share also.
No,
of course. Yeah.
Question.
1 second. I'll stop the recording. Stop the recording. Yes.
So Sunitha ji, I have a question. So you said two standpoint on meditation. One was absolute standpoint. What was the other one?
From the relative standpoint. The relative standpoint, the difference, see, the famous thing of Bhagavan Shankaracharya, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Okay. So Brahma Satyam is from the absolute standpoint. There is no truth except for Brahman. But it is not enough if I totally recognize that Brahma Satyam, I also have to recognize the mithyatva of Jagat. mithyatva or the unreality of Jagat. We have talked about that. Why is the world unreal? That's what he's coming to. Is relative from the point of Brahman. The world is only relative. The world is not there. This world has to be given up in order for me to reach that state of liberation. Because the world is the one which is giving me all the sorrow. I need to recognize very clearly that any kind of dukkham I get, or even for that matter, the temporary sukham that I get, it's all relative. So I need to give that up in order to get to that state. So that's the absolute and the relative standpoint. It is very deep, actually, Meena. As we go further and further, there'll be more and more discussion only on these 2 points. What is the absolute and what is the relative?
Okay. I got it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hari Om, there's a lot of connection with the chapter 14, where there are a lot of references as to the what we are discussing over here, the meditation part, and also how we are supposed to that absolute and the relative. And the other example that you brought in about that flower doesn't need the bee, but the bee needs the flower. That actually it made a lot of sense to me from what I've been reviewing of the 14th chapter. It made a lot of sense to me. So yeah, I love the example. Thank you.
Very nice. Yeah, everything is not, it's not an accident, there is, yeah.
But when it comes to practice, it becomes very hard.
Yeah, no, but more and more of this knowledge, Geeta, ultimately getting the knowledge and then trying to meditate, getting the knowledge, trying to meditate. But the knowledge has to sink in, and that step of mananam is very, very important, because only mananam we try to reflect.
I always think, because we have that in our mind, when we are praying, even though the mind goes away, we pull it back. We are trying to concentrate.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. Thank you, Sunitha.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sunitha ji. Hari Om.
You're welcome. Jayashree, I will reply to your note.
No problem. No, take your time. I understand you're busy. You're not the.
No. Someday I have to upload. Jayashree's point is, can I upload my slides on the Google Drive? I've just not been able to convert it to PDF. That's all I need to do. Convert to PDF and put it.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Take your time.
No. I'll try to do maybe 10 at a time or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hari Om, Sunitha.
Hari Om.
Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kasyat dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shantihi. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate, purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vashishyate. Om shanti shanti shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. So today is Republic Day here.
Yeah, happy Republic
You
Day.
all happy Republic Day. I'm wearing the Republic Day sari. You
Yeah,
can see that.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Happy Republic Day.
I know. I have to do the flag hoisting in my university today. So I'm going to do that.
Wow.
I have to give a short speech. So
Very nice. Very nice.
at 8:30. Now another 20 minutes.
Oh, thank you, Sunitha ji.
Oh, very good. All the best. What is
all
the
the
title in
best.
the university? What is your title in the university?
He's the dean.
Dean.
Dean of
Dean of the whole academics.
Wow.
Now there is only one dean. Who knows? There'll be multiple deans later.
Wow.
As a,
That's wonderful, Sunitha. Wonderful.
Yeah, I saw you in the puja, Lakshmi.
Oh yeah, a little bit was there. Yeah.
The yagna part.
Yeah, correct. Towards the end I came. I wasn't there.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. See you then. Hari Om.
Thank you,
Hari
Sunitha ji.
Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you,
everyone.
Sunitha ji.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.